The content of this podcast is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended as, nor should it be considered a substitute for professional medical advice.
Sweaty and pissed. Menopause makes me sweaty and pissed.
Okay, hey everybody.
Hi.
Hey.
Here we are.
Here we are, sweaty and pissed, menopause and more.
Karen Nickel, nurse practitioner.
Leanne Morgan.
Famous comedian.
Well, I don't know about that girl, but having a big time out and doing and going.
Big demand.
Well, you can go to leannemorgan.com and see where I'm going to be.
Yes.
A lot of places in the next, in 2020.
You are going to be busy.
Yeah. It's but fun.
I'm going to have to come on the road with you to get a podcast done, aren't I?
Uh-huh. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you want to talk about? Because we've talked about some rough stuff that happened to women's doings. Now we got another doings. This won't be a problem for you though, since you're already in menopause. Since I don't have my. Oh my gosh, I got to tell you.
What?
I met these sisters the other night in Orlando. Mm-hmm. 3 of them from a big Catholic family of like 12 kids.
Wow.
And I said something in my act that they yelled out, "She's had 9 kids." And I was like, "What?" And I said, "Is your uterus in the chair?" And they were like, "No, she still has her uterus." So after it was the meet and greet, they were darling. And it was 3 sisters, and 2 of them have 5 children each. Uh-huh. The one that has got 9 has let God plan her family. 49 years old, still has a period. She's had no epidural with any of them. She looked like a movie star. Her husband's a pediatrician. She had tiny little breeches, a cute booty on, like a cute belt, had a shirt tucked in, tiny, looked like a movie star. And she's had 9. She had her first baby at 25. Her last baby's 4.
Oh my
She's
gosh.
49. She goes, "Well, I don't know. I mean, I hope I don't have any more. I mean, but whatever happens." And I'm like, "Oh my Lord, like you could have another." I said, "You still have period?" She goes, "Every month." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, be tickled that you're still having that period, that you've got hormones to make a period. Good for you, girl." She looked like a movie star.
That's great.
Because when you're still making all that, right? That's when you feel good.
Yeah.
And you don't want to take to the bed and watch Scandal and order Jimmy John's in a Soma gown. When perimenopause hits like a brick, knocks you in the teeth. Anyway, but she said our mom had 12.
Yeah. So her hormones must be pretty well balanced to be able to get pregnant that readily. Yeah.
She's had a baby every 2 years, no twins.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Well, no wonder she's run after kids for 25 years.
I mean, she looked like a movie star. Her sisters were beautiful too. And they each had 5.
Wow.
I know. Isn't that something? And I thought, well, kids are wealth. Because I wish I'd have had 10. And then Maggie said to me yesterday, "Do you really, Mom? Do you really think you could have handled?" I go, "I know I could have handled 4. I think I could have handled 4. But I said, when I think about y'all being so close together, and then if I'd have waited, when Tess got in kindergarten, and then I had 2 more, and I said, and you were so nurturing that you would have helped me. She begged me to have another baby for years, and Maggie wants 6. So I said, we could have done it. I mean, it'd have been a blur, but we could have done it. And now look, you know how much you want to squeeze Forrest into.
I know.
I just wish I'd have had more babies. They're so fun. And when they get to be adult children, how fun.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
It is.
Forrest. Anyway, I just had to tell you, I thought, when I met her, I thought, I got to tell Karen about that woman's uterus still going well. Her
still
bladder's,
up there.
I said, "How's your bladder?" She goes, "Doing good. Because I said, we just did a podcast on the bladder tack.
Yeah.
And
she's probably doing her
okay.
Kegels.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Maybe. It's probably in a big old Astro van at a red light doing her Kegels. With a bunch of kids in the car. Well, she's still got a 4-year-old. She's probably got a 4, 6, 8.
Yeah,
Think about that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And her sisters go, and let me tell you, her children are all wonderful, and all doing great, and all.
Wow.
And she goes,
Good for
well,
her.
I don't know. She didn't want them to brag on her, but they said, oh, she's got precious children.
That's great.
I know. Good for her.
Good for her.
Anyway, okay, so you want to talk about if somebody's having trouble with their periods.
Somebody who doesn't have beautiful balanced hormones and having bleeding issues. So some people have what we call menorrhagia, and that's when we have very, very heavy periods, prolonged periods, heavy and prolonged, and to the point where many women will develop pretty significant anemia. And in those cases, one option is something called endometrial ablation. And one of our listeners on our Facebook page asked us if we would speak about endometrial ablation and what we thought about it. I thought about it. So I thought that's a good subject. We'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. And so endometrial ablation is where you go in, the surgeon, the GYN goes into the uterus and basically destroys the lining of the uterus. So and there are two types of endometrial ablation. One is when, and it's the original type of ablation where the surgeon, under general anesthesia, the surgeon goes into the uterus and basically scrapes out and sometimes uses thermal ablation. So it's sort of a manual scraping out of the uterus lining. And so you're trying to destroy the lining. So you're going in about 4 to 6 millimeters deep into the uterus to get rid of the lining. The other type is a thermal ablation where we have these disposable devices where they go in and either use radio frequency or actual heat energy, thermal energy, to basically burn the lining of the uterus. And there are different devices. One's a balloon device. You go in and inflate it, and then it heats up and burns the lining of the uterus. So if that's something that it looks like you would like to consider, it is something you would only do if you did not desire any further pregnancies or start having or becoming pregnant, because once you destroy the lining, there's nothing for the fertilized egg to nestle into. So if you want to become pregnant, you do not want to have an endometrial ablation. And those women who are still having periods or still ovulating, even though their lining is ablated, would still need to use birth control, because you don't want to get a fertilized egg and then it can't implant. So you still need it is not a form of birth control to burn the lining of your uterus or ablate the lining of your uterus. So that's something to consider. If you know you want to have more pregnancies, you don't want an ablation. If you've had what's called a myomectomy, which is the surgical removal of a fibroid, you're also not a good candidate for endometrial ablation, because depending on where the fibroid is, once they take it out, it makes the wall thinner at that point, the wall of the uterus thinner at that point, and you're in the ablation, you like I said, you're going in 4 to 6 millimeters into the uterine lining, and there's more likelihood that you're going to puncture through or cause a perforation through the uterine wall if you've had a myomectomy. So those are not good candidates. Also, people who have fibroids where sometimes when we have a lot of fibroids in the uterus, the lining is not real well defined. So people have a normal lining typically do better with an endometrial ablation. We don't typically do endometrial ablation for menopausal women because if you're bleeding in menopause, it's possible that it could be due to endometrial cancer. And if you ablate that lining, it makes it more difficult to assess whether you have
or find it.
get a good biopsy that will tell us if it's cancerous. So typically the protocol is to do an endometrial biopsy before you do the ablation. Make sure there's no cancer there. So and a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to get my lining ablated so I won't ever have a period after that. And that happens a lot of the time, but not all of the time. So it's really not designed to definitively cause what we call amenorrhea, no periods. So about 40% of women who have an ablation at 1 year will have no periods. So 40% after a year, no periods. About 60% of people at 5 years will have no period. So it's not, obviously it's not 100% of people. There have been studies actually where they did the ablation and then inserted an IUD, like the Mirena, a progestin IUD, and 100% of those people had no periods after that because they had the additional benefit of the Mirena. Yeah. So, and on that note, one option, especially if you desire birth control, one option is for heavy bleeding like that is to, instead of an ablation, to do a progestin IUD. And that's typically where I would start in terms of recommendation, is to consider an IUD if it's the appropriate person. Because it's an in-office procedure and, you're not...
I've loved mine.
Yeah.
I had them for years.
Yeah, and especially if you think you might desire pregnancy later, that would be a really good option, the IUD.
Can we go back just a minute? Because I didn't have heavy bleeding, and praise God, I had normal periods. But when you're talking about somebody who gets this, when you say heavy periods, are you saying people that bleed for 30 days? What are you saying?
Well,
what are we talking about?
Certainly that, but a lot of times are people who, when I say heavy periods, and thank you for asking that, because that should be defined, shouldn't it? If you are changing a super tampon or a pad every 1 to 2 hours, if you're soaking through a tampon every 1 to 2 hours, that's heavy bleeding. And especially, so those people, some people will have a period like that where it's like that for 7 days. Their period is 7 days of that. And when you're bleeding that much, it's just really easy to become anemic. I mean, you're just so much blood loss. So, but it could be somebody who has what we call polymenorrhea, where you're bleeding for
days
nonstop. Yeah.
I've had friends that did that.
Yeah.
Where they're like, I've had a period now for, I don't know how many days, I can't remember because it was a long time ago, but it would be shocking to me.
Yeah.
They really had a hard time.
Yeah, and sometimes that's bleeding that's what we call anovulatory. It's not provoked by ovulation. It's just shedding the lining all the time. So that person would be a candidate. But the IUD is a really nice option for a lot of women. The traditional endometrial ablation is definitely in an operating room with general anesthesia. The newer ones that are with the devices that I was telling you about, the disposable sterile devices, they can be done in office, and it would just have to be an office where they are prepared if there's an emergency, have what we call a crash cart, something that if there was any problem, that they could address that in office. So I think most of the time it's done in the operating room, but theoretically it could be done in the office.
And how long does it take to get over it? Is it bad to get over it?
Actually, recovery time's good. Just you might have some crampiness and for a couple days, but
go home, get in the bed, watch Scandal.
Yeah, exactly.
I went back and started watching it again. If you ever watched Scandal,
No.
oh my Lord. Honey, girl, you need to go back. That Olivia, she's a fixer for the government. But anyway, in the White House, and it's, I loved it. Anyway, that's a good one to get on.
Oh.
You good one to get on and get in the bed and get over having
So how many
Ablation.
seasons of Scandal?
I don't even know how many now. I think I went through all of them. Yeah, but it was Shonda. What is her name? I can't. Shonda Rhimes. Unbelievable.
Thanks for the millennial memory voice over there.
But it was really, it was on ABC, but it's on Netflix. And I'm just trying to find a good show. Every once in a while, if I'm in a hotel room, I can get on my iPad and watch something. But when somebody's healing, or they can watch Ozark. Have you watched Ozark, Forrest? Oh my gosh. Where have y'all been? What are y'all doing?
I have no time.
Well, I don't either, but you got to, all right, Jason Bateman, you love him, don't you? Oh my gosh, Ozark. Oh my gosh. Unbelievable story in the Ozarks. You've got to watch it.
Is that a lot of seasons too?
It's 2, and I think it's coming out with the third one.
Okay.
You've been watching the one about the Hasidic Jews, haven't you?
Yeah, but they haven't gotten a new season yet.
Are they going to?
Well, I think the actors were striking because they were getting paid nothing, and it became a big popular show. So
yeah,
I don't know
I
don't know if that got resolved. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah,
but it's good. Yeah, we've seen this. We watched This Is Us.
Yeah,
you ever watched that?
Yeah.
And
I've been watching the last couple of years. I feel like the characters. Maybe it's not this season, but the one before, it was just very self-indulgent. Tired of it. The brother, the twin.
Yeah, twin. On This Is Us. Who's the twin?
The girl.
Oh,
and boy.
the triplets. Yeah.
Are they triplets?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're right, because they adopted the baby at the same time.
Yeah.
All right, the guy who's the actor.
Oh yeah. Kevin. Yeah,
Kevin got on my nerves. It was always Kevin's having a hard time being beautiful and having women and having jobs and having money. I can't deal with this. Everybody's got enough on them. I don't know. I just got tired of him.
Yeah.
But I love the mom and daddy.
Yeah.
And the throwback to, in the 70s.
Yeah, that's fun to see. My only issue with that show is the wigs are not good.
The 70s wigs?
They're just any wig, just the wigs. Not good.
Oh.
I've seen a lot better wigs on an opera stage. I just am surprised in a TV production that the wigs aren't that good. But
are they looking like Fog Hat? I mean, is it that kind of wig? Like the boys, like the Allman Brothers? I always dug that look. What is his name? Milo. Milo plays the dad, right? I could squeeze him in 2. He is darling. And Mandy Moore. My tour that is starting this in 2020 in June. My concert promoters, Outback Concerts, are promoting Mandy Moore's tour.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
I know. She's back out on tour. She was a singer. So people forget about that. About little Mandy out there doing that. But anyway, she's on a big tour.
That's awesome.
So you watch This Is Us, and what else? I watch Handmaid's Tale, but it freaks me out. And that's coming out on another season.
Oh, are they coming up? Okay. Yeah.
I think that's the last
Yeah, I
one.
watch that when it comes out. But I guess, I just don't have, I get home so late that I can't watch much TV.
Yeah.
So that's
I know.
good.
I haven't
That's
gotten
all
to watch
good.
anything either, but last night I was waiting for Tess to get home from the airport, and I thought, well, I was looking on Netflix, and there just wasn't anything that grabbed me, and So I like to watch a lot of comedy specials, but like Dave Chappelle, and I'm a big fan of his, and there's several people on there. But anyway, Jim Gaffigan and Nate Bargatze, they're people that are promoted in this by this concert
neat.
company too. But anyway, there's just not many shows that grab me now. So I thought I'll just go back and watch Scandal. I thought, oh, that's why I loved it. That's why I loved it. It's like the CIA, intrigue, the White House, affairs, crazy mess, and you know that somebody has been inside and then
telling stories.
Is telling stories.
Yeah.
And that's what's so fascinating.
That's neat.
Yeah, like West Wing.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Oh yeah, you gotta watch it.
That West Wing is the fastest dialogue known to man. It's crazy. They talk so fast.
Well, you know, my manager that you've dealt with, Matt, who's precious and lives in L.A., and he's married to Casey, and her uncle is Martin Sheen.
Oh, is that right?
So when they married, my husband and I went out there, and Chuckina, I call my husband Chuckina on Instagram or Facebook, but anyway, he sat by Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen came and sat down by Chuck, and Chuck could have cradled Martin Sheen like a baby, because you know Chuck is 6'4".
Yeah.
And Martin Sheen was tiny but precious.
Like a baby.
And then his wife was yummy, and they were just really sweet, and sat by us at the wedding. I was like,
that's pretty
what
neat.
in the world? I know. You could have put Martin Sheen in your pocket. But Chuck and I are both such big people. Everywhere we go, we just tower over people. You know, you'd think that I would be shrinking as I age. I feel like I'm getting bigger. I feel like my feet are spreading. My hands are big. When I do a video, my hands look... And then people get their picture made, you know, at a show, and I feel like everybody's under my armpit. I feel like everybody's petite, and I look like a giant. Anyway, you need to, every once in a while, just put on a good show. And if somebody's getting over ablation,
yes,
get in the bed.
Yeah, so I was saying, we were talking about just, what happens in terms of the recovery. And some people will just have some spotting or bleeding for, even a couple weeks after having the ablation. But, typically the complications the complication rate is really low. And also sometimes they will, in preparation for an ablation, just to thin the lining as much as they can, they might give you something like medroxyprogesterone to thin the lining, or Lupron. So they might pre-medicate to get that lining thinner before they go in and do the ablation. So, and again, I just want to reiterate that if you get an ablation, you still have to use birth control. That's, I think, a misconception for a lot of people. But, and it's, because the other option, if you're having really heavy periods, is hysterectomy. So, if an ablation or IUD are good options for you, personally, I would recommend doing one of those before doing a hysterectomy. Yeah.
Okay.
Just because, again, we talked about when people have a hysterectomy, the bladder can drop, and so it does support the bladder, and it has a structural function in the pelvis. So if those other two are options, I would definitely start there.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers the question that our listener had about ablation, endometrial ablation, and I think it's getting a little trickier in terms of getting it approved by insurance to have it done. You have to meet pretty specific requirements, because you don't go into an ablation just to say, I don't want to have periods anymore.
Yeah.
It has to. You have to be dealing with something like anemia, or your work productivity is impacted by your bleeding, or so there have to be some fairly significant reasons to get it approved. But it's worth investigating if you're having really heavy periods, for sure. See, you didn't have to deal with that. But the IUD helps with that. Yeah, so
yeah, but I never had heavy periods.
Yeah.
I had perfect. I always did. It was on clockwork. I mean, I really did, and I'm thankful because you hear more people having trouble. And I don't know. I know a lot of people that just have struggled with that. So
you had really good hormones until perimenopause, and then it hit you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think even though I had, I feel like my thyroid, that crashed, and there was a lot of things that went on, a lot of stress, traumatic things happened, a traumatic death in our family. A lot of that stuff happened at the same time. Mm-hmm. But even through all that, I feel like I've got a pretty strong constitution. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel pretty good.
Yeah, good.
And I mean, I was going to tell you, I did have a little swelling in my tongue that comes back and forth, and I Googled it out on the road, and it said that could be low thyroid. But I've got an appointment, and we'll get that figured out. But I do think, my thyroid's can, but that's normal, right? For it to go funky on you, and then you just test it again, make sure everything's all right.
But you didn't have swelling in your lips?
No,
just the
but
tongue. It just feels thick? Is it actually
very
swollen,
thick.
or just this feels thick?
I don't know what it is. It feels thick, and it's hard for me to talk, which is difficult because I'm a performer. So I get that every once in a while, and I'll take a Benadryl or ibuprofen trying to.
Does that help?
I hope it does. I think when I have something going on, I think of Tina Turner and Ike and what he put her through, and I think the show must go on. If Tina can do it, I can do it.
And do it with the
after
thick
she's
tongue.
been whipped. Yeah. So, but it's sometimes very painful.
Oh.
Yeah. And they said that was low thyroid.
Well, it can be. A thickened tongue and difficulty speaking can be a low thyroid issue, but we just need to check that out.
Yeah. But other than that, I'm strong as a mule.
That's great.
Thank you. I think I'm from farming people, and even with all my mom's been through, which she's doing great. I mean, considering all that she's been through, my grandmother, everybody had a bunch of kids, and didn't even take an aspirin tablet, and birthed them at home.
Yep.
My Aunt Minnie delivered them, and she was not a medical person.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Hey,
so, yeah,
you come from good stock.
I really feel like I have.
That's good.
And the more I'm around people and talking to people, and I must be, healthy, even though I have eaten some cheeseburgers and I have eaten some chocolate to get through a hard time. I really have. I've drank some Diet Coke in my day. I'm trying to do better. But despite all that, I feel like I'm doing okay.
That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm tickled. And when we hear about all these problems with people and their doings, I'm thankful. My doings are okay right now.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Yeah, thank you. I could use some grooming, but other than that, poor Forrest. Thank you, Forrest, for producing this.
Yes, thank you, Forrest Wenzel, our producer and writer of our theme song. And
somebody asked if you sang the theme song recently.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I do sing the theme song. Forrest wrote it, and I sang it. Yep.
Yeah. Nobody would want me to do that.
Well, I don't know. I think that would be actually fun to do a version with you singing it.
People have always said to me, "Can you sing? You sound like Reba McEntire." And I go, "No, no, I didn't get that. I have a thick accent, but I did not get that."
Well, we'll have to see if we can get you recorded to sing
I could
that.
dance to it. We could take a video because I can bust a move.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
All right. So thanks to Forrest, and thanks to Stephen Brown for doing our artwork for our podcast, and thank you for coming back to town so we could do our podcast.
You're welcome. I will not be back for a long time.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, I'm gone every week.
Yeah.
But it's all a blessing.
It is.
From heaven. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank y'all for listening.
And we will see you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Sweaty and pissed. sweaty and pissed.